What is life? The On Fire Cafe presents Awakenings. Perceptions of life's value. What is life? So what is life? Culturally, we regard human life like it is just another commodity to be manipulated and traded to our own benefit. Like somehow our needs outweigh all other considerations. Throughout time, mankind has killed one another for money, for power, for territory, and unfortunately, sometimes just for entertainment. As a culture, we've lost sight of some of the ultimate truths that have existed since the beginning. Human life has value. Life as violence. Proverbs 17:15. He that justifieth the wicked, and he that condemneth the just, even they both are abomination to the Lord. Was the violence fiction? Okay, before I read this, let me first say that I debated whether or not to add these paragraphs into this video because of the content. However, it did illustrate the point and was part of the original blog that was written. So I have included them, but they're not appropriate for children, at least the next few slides, because we're discussing a topic that might not be appropriate. So please keep children away. Okay. What's the violence fiction? I recently watched a video on social media in my news feed that caught my attention. It appeared to be out of Barcelona, Spain during a military conflict. The violence was so explicit, I hesitated. I think it actually shocked me. I saw a man in his underwear with his hands bound behind his back being cut up with what appeared to be a machete. The attack was by men in what appeared, or what might have been, military uniforms. At first I thought I was watching something fiction, as we so often see in today's movies and videos. The shocking truth. Until suddenly the man's hands fell to the ground, and as they continued, the arms were raising and falling with the blows. The hands that had been bound were now lying on the ground in a pool of blood. I suddenly realized what I was watching was real. It reminded me of an animal's reaction while being slaughtered. They go into shock and react instinctually. Their pleasure in darkness. It was a frightening, cold, and empty darkness in those who would take such pleasure in that act, methodically continuing to cut on him as if he had no value at all. And you could see that the men were smiling and laughing. After reporting the video for violent content, I was contemplating what kind of a person was capable of such a violent cruelty. Too soon I realized if we look throughout history, sadly, it was all of us. Life as nothing. Pure live seed. So what is life? If I am purchasing seed for planting, there is a term, pure live seed, that is used. In the definition, it is described as a measure used by the seed industry to describe the percentage of a quantity of seed that will germinate. So in effect, if a plant seed will germinate, or it is anticipated that it will grow into life, we will give it value and consider it alive. So in our society, for some purposes, a possibility of a viable life has value. Abortion. Psalm 94:21. They gather themselves together against the soul of the righteous and condemn the innocent blood. Genesis 9:6. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man. The arguments. So what is life? I can imagine so many pro-choice believers poised and ready to argue all the usual arguments. A number of them on women's rights, the unwanted child, economics. I have even seen a number of written arguments trying to use the words in the Bible to justify the actions of the deliberate termination of a human pregnancy, stating that the unborn life is biblically fated to be of lesser value. Created in God's image. But I know that all of these arguments are of no consequence to the real issue here, which is God created a human life, which by definition is in his own image. And for that alone, it has a great value. Following God's gift of human life, man, in his arrogance, believes we have the right to be like God and remove that life before it has begun, as if there is no value in the miracle of human life itself. Proverbs 6:17. A proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood. Ezekiel 35:6. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord God, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Sith thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. The right to choose. I keep seeing all these protests and petitions going around asking me to support women who want to go into abortion clinics without being harassed for their choice. I've seen the arguments that support the position that pregnancies are not life, so then what is life? One definition of abortion that I found when looking, the deliberate termination of a human pregnancy. There's something dark and haunted in those words. Choices have consequences. Do not misunderstand me here. I do not stand in judgment of choices made or choices to be made, for I'm no stranger to the enemy's darkness myself. The choice that is made is still a matter of free will, but not free of consequences, as so many are led to believe. We are all vulnerable to the deceptions that remain constant throughout our lifetime. I simply try here to share a truth which I have known for myself, a truth hidden within the deceptions of this world, attempting to cut through all the lies to find the truth of it. And there will come a day when a sorrow will descend as a consequence, when you wonder what might have been, or who might have been, when the realization comes that the enemy has manipulated thinking yet another time, leaving an unspoken emptiness that you never realized would come. And there can be such profound sorrow in the darkness. Life as a sacrifice. Ezekiel 16:20-21. Moreover, thou hast taken thy sons and thy daughters, whom thou hast borne unto me, and these hast thou sacrificed unto them to be devoured. Is this of thy whoredoms a small matter? That thou hast slain my children, delivered them to cause them to pass through the fire for them. The great deceptions. So throughout time, who has tried so hard to be like God? Who has done everything to convince mankind that we should renounce God and worship instead our own interests in our selfishness? Twisted our thinking, promoting the worship of our own pleasures and desires in place of a path of righteousness. Guided the worship of our own convenience in our ignorance. So I say to you, brothers and sisters, do not listen to the constant streams of rhetoric on this issue. Do not be influenced by the great deceptions which have been crafted over long decades in the great enemy's darkness, opinions which can be traced all the way back to their beginnings. Sacrifice defined. Something more to consider. What is the definition of sacrifice? According to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, to suffer loss of, give up, renounce, injure, or destroy, especially for an ideal belief or end. Human sacrifice has always been part of the enemy's kingdom, so potentially the continuance of it, in one form or another, part of his manipulation. Consider historical similarities. Mankind is no stranger to child sacrifice throughout history. Modern-day termination of a human pregnancy is not necessarily a sacrifice like that of the Canaanites to Molech or Baal. It is not consciously intended as tribute to idols or false gods. However, there can be no mistake concerning the similarity to the enemy's ancient influence and manipulation. Biblically, there is a grouping of child sacrifice and illicit sexual immorality. It is believed that the use of child sacrifice would have been a convenient method to remove the inconvenient offspring resulting from the adulterous behaviors. Yet another manipulation by the dark enemy to destroy man's relationship with God. Ezekiel 23:36-37. The Lord said, moreover, unto me, Son of man, wilt thou judge Aloha and Aloaba? Yea, declare unto them their abominations. That they have committed adultery, and blood is in their hands. And with their idols have they committed adultery, and have also caused their sons, whom they bear unto me, to pass for them through the fire to devour them. Convenience and a choice. And in reality, is today's dilemma of unwanted pregnancy so different? In fact, it is usually those out of wedlock who have found themselves in the uncomfortable position of pregnancy who consider their choice. Extramarital sex in the form of fornication and or adultery is the ultimate cause of most pregnancies that will end in abortion. Considerations of fear, single parenthood, finances, career, or other factors make their situation inconvenient at best. It's not usually the married woman's conception which ends in the deliberate termination of a human pregnancy. A parent killing offspring. So how is this consideration so different than those with biblical child sacrifice? A clear correlation is the fact that the parent is willing to kill their own offspring. Abortion is usually a perceived solution to the consequence of sexual sin, manipulation of mankind's thinking by the dark enemy, blurring the lines between what is right and what is wrong, leaving only pain and destruction in its wake. And yes, it is clear we have an accountability in the decision. But also make no mistake, the decisions are being manipulated in the darkness. The changes in our thinking, orchestrated over time, as just another step towards goals within a dark agenda, yet another step to move our souls down the path of condemnation, and we stand blindly in our ignorance. Our hands are stained with the blood of the innocent. Life is a gift. Isaiah 59:2-3. But your iniquities have separated between you and your God, and your sins have hid his face from you, that he will not hear. For your hands are defiled with blood, and your fingers with iniquity. Your lips have spoken lies, your tongue hath muttered perverseness. The blood of the innocent. So what is life? A right to choose does not mean anything we choose is right. There is a responsibility with all of us to control the laws that govern these choices and actions. The Bible teaches us that we are to submit to the law because the authority is in place for a reason, a role to play in our protection. We should submit to man's law unless it is in conflict with God's law. But God's law is clear that we do not shed the blood of the innocent. Follow the law. There are now generations who have lived in a world where abortion is legal under the law. Generations who have been taught that the unborn life has no value, that the sacrifice of the unborn offspring is of no consequence, that in fact, it is not even life. The responsibility. And there is a responsibility for allowing this situation to come this far. A responsibility for allowing generations to be manipulated by the lies of the enemy. A responsibility for allowing the use of our legal authority to further the dark agenda. This responsibility lies on the shoulders of those of us who know the truth. Whether it's an act of commission or omission, in this we all stand accountable. Align man's law to God's law. Life cannot be accomplished by mankind's will alone without divine intervention. This miracle that is life is a gift and at all times has value. We have a responsibility to change laws that are in conflict with biblical principles. A responsibility to teach the lesson that we know is the truth to those who have been thus far deceived. A responsibility to once again take control of the laws and bring them back to righteousness. Protections for those who are being deceived by the darkness in their blindness. Romans 12, 1 through 3. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. Well, thanks for joining us at the On Fire Cafe YouTube channel. Be sure and hit subscribe. And we look forward to seeing you at our website at www.onfirecafe.net.